3rd of September.
It's okay. Now we pass through the report on fact-finding mission to Denmark, and again the floor to Mrs. Werthmann.
Many thanks for giving me the floor. I was the head of the delegation which led us on the 20th of June and the 21st of June to Copenhagen, to Denmark. Peter, and Carlos Iturgaiz were the second and the third members, so to say. We went there concerning the petitions that we had discussed in February, which talked about children's rights, foreign parents' discrimination, and also discrimination of Danish mothers. And as a consequence of this session and discussion that we had in February, many more petitions were received in the committee, which at the moment being go through the process of evaluation. I believe that the agenda is known. Nevertheless, I would like to share some comments and insights of our experience to Denmark. We asked for a meeting specifically with the Minister of Social Affairs as well as with the Minister of Justice. Unfortunately, both ministers let us know that they could not meet with us, I quote, because they are facing summer vacation, quote end. I believe that ministers deny a meeting with an official delegation of the European Parliament's Petitions Committee meeting has a big say. In my view, and to what I have learned in the meantime, this is actually the first time that something like this has happened. It makes me feel very concerned. My personal conclusion of the denial of such a meeting with members of the European Parliament participating in an official delegation shows to a certain extent that yes, there is a political problem, and that yes, indeed, this problem is more severe than any of us can actually know at the moment being. And I will explain this a little bit further ahead. In the meantime, I also learned that the Minister of Social Affairs, unfortunately, let the people in Denmark know that it was us who did not want to meet with their representatives and who did not want to discuss any details. We wanted to, according to her, we wanted to discuss very detailed cases. We learned very quickly that they were not even prepared to discuss detailed cases, so we switched. We were really well prepared, all the three of us. And we asked very specific questions concerning the topics per se. Unfortunately, these people, these representatives with whom we were allowed to talk, whether it was the Minister of Social Affairs or the Minister of Justice cabinet, they seemed not to be well prepared at all. In some cases, they even denied to answer us, which led to the conclusion, to the very unfortunate fact, that we actually came back home to Brussels with a lot more questions. And I believe this also has a big say. Interesting enough was also that the third high-ranking official that we asked a meeting with was the head of the Danish police. Unfortunately, also he only sent members of his cabinet, I like to say. I don't know a better English expression. In my language, we would say Mitarbeiter, Sachbearbeiter. I don't know how we can translate that in a better way. Also, these two people were not prepared to answer specific questions. So I think we should all think about the actual consequences of this and what it has to say. In the evening of Thursday, we met with petitioners and with people who have already submitted a petition to the European Parliament's Petitions Committee, to our committee. And we have also met with people. In this meeting, there were also people who are going to submit a petition. It was about more than 35 to 40 people who were present, mothers and fathers, representatives of concerned parents. The meeting lasted, and this is also a first time, for more than 4 hours straight. None of the three of us, included Mr. Hazen from the Secretariat, did dare to move actually, because these stories, colleagues, were really, really touching. We learned about physical abuse of some parents doing on their children. We learned about even sexual abuse of young children, of very young children. These children were asked, in some cases, by the kindergarten or by the school. The minutes of these interrogations of the children were then presented to the abusing father. Imagine what this says actually, what this does on the child. The child wants to get out of the problematic situation. Imagine how the child must feel that the child trusts a person to convey what has been done to the child, and then in the end, as a consequence, the father listens to all of this, which I understand because they have to be asked, but they were reported, I only can say it this way, they were reported on, yes, they wear a nice suit, and they say, oh no, my child is lying, so now everything is okay. These children have to go back, or had to go back, to the abusing father. I have to say that this is not only concerning mothers of Danish origin, this also concerns parents, mothers and fathers of European origin and of third countries, for example, America or Asia. So I think that these people shared their experience with us, that they trust us. We have to take it very, very seriously. The next morning we had a meeting with the Ombudsman. 2 minutes more, please. I think Carlos could summarize this meeting much better than I can. I would like to thank him for his office, actually, for being there. He himself is, of course, excused because he was on a delegation abroad, so it goes without saying that he cannot be there in person. To make a long story very short, the three of us have immediately reached a consensus, as Peter likes to say. We have decided to work very, very quickly, thanks also to the cooperation with the Secretariat, to David Lowe as well as to Jos Hazen. Thank you very much for your input. Thank you very much for all your support that you give to this important issue. I, for myself, have learned that it is very important to take serious the concerns of children, and in this case I would like to say it is not only a Danish issue. It concerns children and parents of other European countries as well as of third countries. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jahr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to add a couple of things to what Mrs. Werthmann said. The agenda was very well organised by the Secretariat. The trip, however, had certain problems. We met with authorities who thought they had the best laws in the world and said that no amendments were necessary. The climate was a kind of friendly suspicion, so people were friendly and nice to us, but when it came to the substance, they didn't budge. The first misunderstanding was that they said that they'd talk in specifics rather than they talk in general ways and rather than certainties. But actually, we need to deal with specific cases. But we weren't able to make any progress on that. I'd almost have said it would have been like a journey to Moscow during the Cold War, because the principle was not to allow intervention in internal matters. That was how we were taught, we were treated. Denmark said we had a closed stop, and then we'll go back to Brussels and do your thing, and don't intervene in the way we do things. But we'd have to tell Denmark that as a member of the European Union that has to deal with certain things and deal with European legislation. The second thing, which was perhaps unique, that I thought it was to be regretted expressly that no member of the European Parliament from Denmark took the opportunity or the time to accompany us. There was no ex-official member. In other delegations, we've had an ex-official member who's come along on such trips. That would have been important because they could have perhaps been able to explain certain things to us. Come back to the work of the Ombudsman. I think it would have been useful to have had the situation, to taken the tension out of the situation, because we were discussing discrimination. But we just said they don't have any cases of discrimination because those aren't registered. So this was like a journey into the past. That's how I've seen things in other systems. Another particularity with what you've done that was perhaps unique, we had the long talk with the petitioners, but nobody was willing to break out of this. But from our point of view, from our joint view, we were talking about criminal activity, and we've said that doing nothing would have been like being an accessory to the crime. And I think this is unique, that where members of the delegation wanted to pass things on to the state prosecutor, because we had to ask the state prosecutor to deal with the matters even more intensively. We're not talking about political things, we're not talking about property here, we're talking about the rights of children, and these were dealt with in a very problematic way. So these would be my basic comments.
Just, I'm sorry I couldn't participate. I would have done it, but I was on my way to the hospital with my hip disconnected. So I was in the ambulance when you had the long meeting. I wouldn't think you would have liked me to be there. It was a nice view, just to tell you. But I can say two things more, and then I will not go into it. One thing, you could see this committee is not known at all in Denmark. You might say yesterday you don't care because it's known in your country. But that is one of the things I'm facing. It's a secrecy in Denmark. That this, even if it's in my weekly news, and I've tried to tell about it, but there I call it the Citizens Claiming Committee. Because when I use the Danish word, nobody will understand it's there. Just to tell you, you met that. But you accepted yesterday that that should be the conditions in Denmark, and that's how you like it. Secondly, which I think you were not informed about, Denmark tried, after we made an EU law on divorces and custody cases, there's an EU law. Denmark has the opt-out. I'm against this opt-out, but it's there. And Denmark tried to get a parallel agreement to this common law, and it was denied. So now we don't have common laws. I just tell you, so we are ending up in sometimes conflicts where you have one court case in one country, another court case in the other country. No possibility to solve it. And I think that was a main issue you were turning into here. And I'm sorry that nobody made that clear, because of course it should have been the Danish authorities who should have explained to you that we don't have common laws here, because we're not part of this here, because of the Danish opt-out and the denial that we could get Denmark could get a parallel agreement. And apart from that, I'm very sorry you didn't meet people. I have seen an instruction from the Foreign Ministry, which was very strong on be open, informative, and so on. That was in the instruction from I've seen it. But I can tell you the time you went was, if you coming from the south don't know what the 21st of June is in Denmark. But the 21st of June in Denmark, you could imagine, coming a Thursday evening, the 20th of June, where the end of the parliament, and people are it's midsummer, and it's the white nights, and everybody is just flying Copenhagen.
And drinking.
And drink, no, not that Swedish. But I think it was a very bad time, but I absolutely regret that you didn't meet people. I think that there was some misunderstandings on the timetables and on the planning, but I will never say it was this committee's fault. Just what I've heard when I've asked afterwards, because I, of course, received the harsh critique.
Thank you, Mrs. Hogan. Thank you to everybody. This was only the first exchange of views on this report. Then we will discuss on the draft